We're so close to cracking it, guys. We're definitely going into the last day. We're definitely going into the last day of trial. There's no way they can prolong this any longer, man. February 25th, 9:47 a.m. District Court Defendant Lobby, number 2. This is the defendant's lobby, all right, but there is no defendant. I've been trying to reach Lana all morning. Where could she be? And where is Emma, for that matter? It almost seems as if something's been happening behind the scenes. Edgeworth? Knowing you, you've already figured it out. Who the owner of the 77 ID number is? Well, I have a pretty strong hunch. Looks like I'm not the only one who's figured it out. You know, the only reason this trial didn't reach a verdict yesterday is because there was still room for doubt on this ID record. If that number does belong to whom you suspect, then no doubt will remain. After all, he hasn't been officially charged with anything. True. Not yet. In any event, once all doubt has been removed from that list, I can call for a ruling on the defendant. 5 minutes after this trial starts, Lana will be found guilty. But she didn't do it! I figured you'd say as much. And that's why I came here. To hear what you have to say. This is the first time he's ever done something like this. Lana's hiding something, and the only way we'll ever know the truth is to draw it out of her. The truth? Everything goes back. Back to the SL9 incident. Don't be stupid! Today's the last day of the trial. We don't have time to reminisce about the past. That depends on you. If she's found guilty, you'll lose your only chance to find out what really happened. I'll think about it. See you in court, right? This is it. If I'm ever gonna find out what Chief Gant has on her, it's now. Rabble, 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 rabble.
All right. The court is now in session for the trial of Miss Lana Skye.
The defense is ready, Your Honor. And the prosecution is ready, Your Honor.
Now, normally, this is when the prosecution puts forth its opening statement. But before that, the police chief has a proposal to make.
Chief Gantz? Morning, folks! How's everyone doing? Hey, Yuji. Been back to the pool yet?
No, I've been drowning in enough of my work as it is.
Oh, that's a good one, Yuji. Don't think I can top that. If you don't mind me asking, Chief, what exactly is this proposal of yours? Lana, that is to say, the defendant, has asked me if she could speak directly to the court. She wants to do what? Having heard what she intends to say, I feel she should be granted her request. In the end, it should save everyone a lot of time and trouble. What is this all about, defendant? I would just like to make one simple request and I'll be finished.
Well then, what is your request?
Your Honor, I'd like you to put an immediate end to this trial. Huh? I confess to all charges against me. On February 21st of this year, I murdered Detective Bruce Goodman in the underground parking lot of the prosecutor's office. No, Lana! Objection! Not so fast, Lana, you can't! Your Honor, the defendant's claim does not change the defense's plea. In that case, Mr. Wright, I no longer require your services. But Lana! Your Honor, I hereby forfeit my right to an attorney. The prosecution may lack direct evidence against me, but it has sufficiently proven its case through testimony and circumstantial evidence. I would like you to render your verdict now, if you please.
Well, the defendant certainly has the right to self-representation. Her request is legally valid, although this is an unprecedented situation. Indeed, it appears there is no further need to continue this trial, even if Mr. Wright may feel otherwise.
This can't be happening.
It appears the time for the verdict has arrived. This court finds the defendant, Lana Skye.
One moment, Your Honor.
Mr. Edgeworth?
The prosecution has not yet proven the defendant guilty beyond reasonable doubt. Any ruling at this stage would certainly be premature. Come now, Worthy. I understand this is a difficult time for you, but why don't you just be a good little boy and keep your mouth shut? I don't think I care for your tone, Chief Gant. What? Creating another fabrication to cover up your past mistakes. Sorry, but I'm no longer the little naive boy you would have me be. Dude, this final case is gonna be so cool! It's gonna be me and Edgeworth versus Gant. We're gonna team up on him. Oh, fuck yeah, bud. Oh my god, I'm so unreasonably excited about this. When the sudden confession from the defendant, it is obvious to me some kind of deal was struck behind the scenes. Some kind of deal, Not everyone operates as you do, Worthy. I thought so. Your Honor, the prosecution would like to change its first witness.
Oh? To whom?
As its first witness, the prosecution would like to call Miss Emma Skye. I request the court hears her testimony. Hold it! Mr. Edgeworth, I am exercising my right to self-representation. I don't think we need to I don't care what you think, Miss Skye. The exposure of the truth sometimes results in tragedy. However, no matter how tragic the truth may be, it would be an even greater tragedy to avert one's eyes from it.
Very well. The court shall grant the prosecution's request. That's okay with you, right, Chief Gant?
Worthy. You'll live to regret this. Mark my words. Miss Emma Skye, please take the stand. Looks like Edgeworth has decided to take the horse by the reins that have been blessed down in Africa. Now then, witness, please state your name and occupation. My name is Emma Skye. My occupation? Well, I'm Lana's little sister and I want to be a scientific investigator. 2 years ago, you encountered the serial killer Joe Dark of the Joe Dark killings. Is this correct? Yes. I'm trying my hardest to forget about that, though. I'm sorry, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to recall those events one more time.
Mr. Edgeworth, please remember this trial concerns the murder of Detective Goodman. An incident that was resolved 2 years ago is really all not that relevant, is it?
Yes, it most certainly is.
Well, okay then.
He sure gave in fast. Now, please testify about what happened to you 2 years ago. The trip to yesteryear has finally begun. It's bound to lead to the truth behind this trial. I was waiting in my sister's office that day. A man came running in and, well, he took me hostage. Neil Marshall rescued me, but I'll never forget what I saw that instant. That man raised up his knife and stabbed Mr. Marshall in the chest.
It's a good thing you weren't harmed.
I passed out. I don't remember much.
That's understandable. However, please tell Mr. Edgeworth, what does his testimony have to do with Detective Gumshoe's murder?
That will soon become apparent, Your Honor. You've got to admire him for courage, considering he has no evidence.
Very well, the defense may begin its cross-examination.
I was waiting in my sister's office that day. A man came running in and took me hostage. A man? Yes, Joe Dark. He was a serial killer. Joe Dark was brought in for questioning on the day of the ceremony. We were desperate to get anything on him that would lead to an arrest.
When he saw his chance, he fled to the room, right?
Upon fleeing the room, Drake proceeded to take the elevator. He must have been in a panic because the elevator was going up. Then he ran into Skye and Gant's office. There was a lot of noise coming from outside, so I opened up the door to have a look. And that's when I saw him. Neil Marshall rescued me. But I'll never forget what I saw that instant. Can you tell us about that? Mr. Marshall jumped on Drake. Dark. Just then, the lights went out. The lights? It was just about the time of the year. There was a terrible storm going on and a lightning had struck nearby. So the electricity went out.
Wait a minute. If it was pitch dark in that room, you shouldn't have been able to see anything, right?
Right, but just then lightning flashed outside, and then sudden flash left an unforgettable image on the scene of my mind.
I see.
I told the detective about what I saw then. The detective? Yes, Detective Goodman. He was in charge of the case. Detective Bruce Goodman, the victim. Hear more. So you spoke with Detective Goodman about this 2 years ago? Yes. That's what's so scary about this trial. And you told Detective Goodman about what you saw? Yes, but at the time, the words just wouldn't come out. That's why I drew a picture. A picture? Yeah, I think she mentioned that before.
Well, Mr. Wright, have you heard enough?
Ask about the picture. This picture the witness drew, I believe it has a very important meaning. But the list of evidence I was given 2 years ago didn't contain a picture.
Witness, would you mind if we added the statement to your testimony?
I drew a picture of that scene once, but it seems to have been lost. Nah, girly. Remember that little flipperoonie we did earlier, guys? Remember that little flipperoonie we did in the little last section?
Oh, what's on the back of the... Oh, is that evidence?
Don't. Oh, it's 100% upside down, but yeah. Not so fast, Edgeworth, I guess. This little girl put all her heart into that drawing. And yet you still insist on denying its existence? Huh? Hey, I'm not the bad guy. All I'm saying is that as the prosecutor for that case, I wasn't handed such a picture. That may well be, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Behold.
Well, this is the evidence list from the SL9 incident?
Please turn it over, sir. Turn it over. Turn it... What? What's this? Yes. What is that? Well, hey, that's it. That's the picture I drew.
Indeed. Two men appear to be wrestling here.
What is the meaning of all this? What are you doing with that list? Me? Only prosecutors in charge should have access to that list.
Huh? These lists, they're different from each other.
What?
It would appear, Mr. Edgeworth, that the evidence list you were handed 2 years ago was incomplete. These two lists fit together to form one. You can see the marks in here where they were torn apart from each other.
So you see, Mr. Edgeworth, it's quite obvious what happened. 2 years ago, only half of the evidence in this case ever reached you. What? Nani?
Order. Order in my courtroom. Who would have thought the picture would have been drawn on the back of the list?
That was handed to Detective Goodman in the questioning room? Wait a minute. If this list was torn in half, then that means... Your Honor.
Are you all right, Mr. Wright? Your eyes are bulging from your head.
If this evidence list was torn in half, then there might be more of the drawing on the back of Mr. Edgeworth's list.
Yes, that's quite conceivable, Mr. Edgeworth.
It's possible. Let's see. Huh? You're telling me this guy never looked at the back of this list? You're telling me he didn't notice it was a paper torn in half? Come on.
Is something wrong?
Do you even have to ask? Sorry, Your Honor. There is something drawn on the back of my list. It is that thing. What? What? It's you? What? What do you have to do with this? This is the only thing that I can think of even a little bit right now. This guy, but this doesn't have anything. Oh my god. That's...
That thing? That thing was dancing in the evidence room.
Apparently, the head of criminal affairs used this for his blueprint. I guess he was out of scrap paper. So now we have the double evidence list.
Very well, witness. Will you please testify about the picture you drew 2 years ago?
Huh? Oh, yes, sir, Your Honor. What's wrong with Emma? She seemed to be thinking about something when she saw that picture. This is the picture I drew 2 years ago. The flash of lightning was so bright, all I could see were shadows. After that, I must have fainted. The picture shows exactly what I saw that instant.
To think a flash of lightning could burn such an image into your mind.
Thanks to that, though, she was able to show us exactly what she saw.
Well, I don't see any contradictions here. This clearly shows Joe Dark about to murder prosecutor Neil Marshall. The defense may now begin its cross-examination.
This is the picture I drew 2 years ago. I want to look at this evidence list real quick. I'm so confused about this thing, man. I feel like they have to be more connected than just a coincidence. Shows exactly what I saw that instant. All right, I'm with you guys. I think this is a solid evidence expressing, but I want to press a little harder first. Did you draw this picture right after the incident? I think I drew it in 2 or 3 days later. At first, I was in such a state of shock I couldn't do anything. During that time, the detective team was reorganized. Detective Goodman was placed in charge under the direction of Damon Gant and Lana Skye. 2 or 3 days later, the memory should have still been fresh in her mind.
Excuse me, witness. Can you please tell us why this picture is painted all black?
The flash of lightning was so dark, all I could see was shadows. Because she's not a professional painter. So, at the time, you didn't even know it was Mr. Marshall who had come to your rescue? No, I couldn't see him clearly. The lightning was so bright, and I was knocked to the floor. You were knocked to the floor? Dark had a tight grip on me, but when Mr. Marshall jumped on him, I was knocked away. I turned around, and that's when I saw the lightning flash. Poor Emma. I'm just glad she wasn't hurt. What happened after the lightning flashed? After that, I must have fainted. You mean you didn't actually see the murder take place then? No, I'm sorry. The flash of lightning only drove off the darkness for a split second. Not only that, but the trauma of the situation understandably caused the witness to faint. Do you really need to torture the girl any farther, right? What? Hey, I'm not the bad guy here. Anyway, this picture shows exactly what I saw that instant. Sorry for asking so many questions, or for so many times, but are you sure you drew exactly what you saw? Of course, this is the exact scene. It wasn't influenced in any way from your talks with the detectives? Are you insinuating we somehow manipulated her memory, Mr. Wright? No, of course not. Better watch out or you may find some way to cut my salary. I drew this picture before I heard anything from the detectives, so I don't think anyone's story would have influenced me.
Mr. Wright, is there something that's bothering you about this picture?
Huh? Oh, well, that's strange. She claims this is exactly the scene that was imprinted in her mind, and yet there's clearly a contradiction here. Let's go ahead and present the autopsy report. Nice. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this picture the witness drew contains a blatant contradiction. What? But I remember it just like it was yesterday.
Mr. Wright, perhaps it would be faster if you simply pointed out the contradiction to us. What part of this picture is the contradiction?
I'm gonna say right there. I think it's this part here. Huh? I don't see what's so strange about that. That's because the drawing stinks. Mr. Wright, how could you? The act of making an innocent girl cry should warrant the death penalty. I guess he means I shouldn't shift the blame to the others?
Yes, well, so long as the defense has learned his lesson.
I better take another look at that autopsy report. The knife's already broken in here, it looks like, too. Let's try it. The contradiction, of course, lies here. Take a look at the knife that the man is holding. If you look closely, you can see its tip is broken.
In fact, you don't even have to look closely to see that.
But, Mr. Wright, look at the evidence. See, the murder weapon? Its tip is broken, too.
If I recall, the tip of the knife was found broken off in the victim of the body. Or in the body of the victim.
It was the conclusive piece of evidence that proved Joe Dark was the murderer. I'm afraid it's not so simple, Emma. Huh? Where could you possibly see a problem? Oh, it's obvious, really. The victim suffered a single stab wound to the back. If the victim was only stabbed once, then the murder weapon should not have yet been broken.
What? What is the meaning of this?
Perhaps the knife was broken beforehand. Nope, sorry, but I'm afraid that's not possible. The tip of the knife was found inside the victim's body. If it was broken beforehand, it couldn't possibly wind up there.
That's right. But what does this really mean?
The tip of the knife was undeniably discovered within the victim's body. The only possible explanation is the witness's memory is mistaken. That's why I asked her so many times if she was sure she remembered correctly. I believe you were annoyed at the time, but she was sure she remembered correctly. But there's no other way to explain this inconsistency. Not so fast, Mr. Edgeworth. There is another explanation. Have you forgotten already about a little something called falsified evidence? You're treading on thin ice, Wright. All I'm saying is that this broken knife might be the piece of evidence that was forged. You can't deny the possibility. No. No!
Listen, I will have order in my courtroom. Are you saying the investigation really was corrupted?
Your Honor, please allow me to once again go over the events that took place the day of the murder. The police department and the prosecutor's office were holding a ceremony that day, right? After receiving the King of Prosecutors Award at the ceremony, Neil Marshall questioned Joe Dark along with Damon Gant. During his questioning, Joe Dark fled the room. Prosecutor Marshall chased after him and was killed by Dark. It is my belief that somewhere in this story there is a lie. I'm not lying. The man really was holding up a broken knife. Well, if that's true, then there's no other way around it. This could not have been the actual murder weapon. There must have been another broken knife.
What are the chances of there being two broken knives?
Another broken knife beside John Dark's? Could there have been one? On the other prosecutor's trophy is a broken weapon. And right here in the picture is a gigantic knife. But the broken weapon on the statue can't be in him. But this one's not broken is the only thing. That's the only issue with this. This knife isn't broken. Well, it's worth a shot. If the witness is this adamant about the accuracy of what she saw, it can't just be explained away by a simple observation. Mr. Wright. In that instant, Emma really did see a broken knife.
I assume, then, that you have some information about the other broken knife? If so, please feel free to enlighten us.
The murder weapon was already broken prior to the murder. There's only one way. Take a look at this. The real murder weapon. All right, I'm trying it. It has to be, man. It has to be this knife. The answer lies in the past. 2 years in the past. Right here inside this picture. This is a picture of the award ceremony.
What is it, Mr. Edgeworth?
It's the broken murder weapon. Notice the award Prosecutor Marshall is holding. That's a broken knife. As we earlier concluded, the knife in the picture was not John Dark's knife. That being the case, the knife the witness saw was in all likelihood this award.
Order! Order! Order!
Neil Marshall was awarded King of Prosecutor that day. As an award, he was given a broken shield and a broken knife. When he chased after Joe Dark, he pulled out this knife. Being a prosecutor, he did not carry a pistol. The broken knife was the only weapon he had in this dangerous situation.
But that
can't be. Oh, and why not, Mr. Edgeworth? Because if the King of Prosecutors Award knife was the murder weapon, then the murderer and the victim would have been reversed. What do you mean? I mean, the man raising a knife would have been Prosecutor Neil Marshall. It is. It is. That's not the problem here, guys. But the prosecutor was
the one who actually died.
That's true. What's going on here? It seems Mr. Wright has been a bit too eager to jump to conclusions. Wait, I remember now. I remember everything.
Witness?
Mr. Edgeworth, what is it? Could you show me your evidence list again, please?
His list? The one with that picture scribbled on the back?
I knew it. This picture. I'm the one who drew it.
What?
You drew that? That's right. The list wasn't torn in half at the time I drew this picture. At the time, I had been trying to forget so hard. I must have locked this part away deep inside me.
Perhaps it would be best if we added this to the witness's testimony. Would you please tell us what you recalled, Miss Sky?
The Blue Badger was the killer the whole time, guys. My God. Yes, Your Honor. First, the knife mix-up, and now the Blue Badger? This should be interesting. Emma's recollection. When I saw that man raise his knife, I panicked. I rushed towards the both of them. I think I knocked away the man with the knife. Just then, there was another flash of lightning, and that's when I saw the Blue Badger. He wasn't in the room, but I'm sure I saw his shadow. I get it. This is certainly most unusual. Try impossible! The head detective of criminal affairs didn't design him until this year. That wouldn't mean he didn't exist 2 years ago.
Yes, well, the defense may now begin its cross-examination.
Stop! Please don't pursue this any further. Lana.
What is the meaning of this? Please remain seated in the defendant's chair.
But you can't do this. I've already confessed to the crime. Why can't you just leave it at that? Chief Prosecutor Sky. We've already come this far. It's too late to turn back.
Silence. The defense will now begin its cross-examination. Bailiff, please detain the defendant.
Seems we're finally getting to the core of the matter. All right. Well, I got an idea, guys. I think we're all on the same page here, but and that's when I saw it, the Blue Badger, but I think we can all agree that this right here resembles the shape of the Blue Badger if you use shadows. Like, if it was the shadow of it, this thing has blood on it, man. It's evidence. It's involved. Yeah, and it has a drawing on it. He even included it from the freaking old, in his safe, right? He's hiding it. Let's take one more look at the back of this thing. And it's sideways here. It's sideways here. Why is it sideways? I want to play with this a little bit. Hold on. It's all a matter of perspective. If you look at it like this, you have it. If you look at it like this, it looks exactly the same. It's all a matter of perspective. The Blue Badger and the vase are one and the same. Objection, Miss Lana Scott. I forget her name. I'm so excited. The mysterious Blue Badger was in fact this. It's Emma.
But that, what exactly is that?
I believe it's some sort of jar. But Mr. Wright, that doesn't look anything like the Blue Badger. Indeed, it doesn't. As it stands now, it's just a plain jar. However, what if we were to change our viewpoint?
Our viewpoint?
I've got to show them the correct angle to look at this from. Yeah, right? Like that. Well, is this a miracle or what? No one can possibly deny this jar's resemblance to the blue badger. No, it can't be.
Order. Order! The defense has proven its claim. The mysterious blue badger witnessed on the day of this crime was actually this
Although we've enjoyed Mr. Wright's dramatic performance, one question remains. What's your point? What do you mean? So the badger thing was actually just a jar. That doesn't change anything. I'm afraid that's where you're wrong, Mr. Edgeworth. You see, this changes everything. Indeed? Well, very well then, please tell us. What's different now that we know the witness saw the jar? It doesn't change the location, it doesn't change the murderer. We still know the murderer, but it changes the murder weapon. No, but it doesn't change the murder weapon. He was still stabbed, right? Wasn't he? Maybe he was stabbed after the fact. No, he was pierced in the lungs. This changes the murderer. Allow me to take these in turn. At the moment of the murder, the witness saw this jar. Not only that, but she saw it at a very specific angle. Knowing this, where could she have seen this jar from? Where? The location of the jar is shown in a picture taken on the day of the crime. It's on a shelf in the office of Damon Gant. But the body was found lying near Lana Sky's desk. The witness testified so herself. Yes, and it's these two facts that reveal what actually transpired. You see, the struggle between Dark and Marshall did not take place in Lana Sky's office. It happened in the other side of the room in Chief Gant's office. Are you implying the murderer moved the victim's body from Damon Gant's office to Lana Sky's office? Yes. Why would he do that? There's no reason. Exactly. If there wasn't a reason, he wouldn't have gone through the trouble. The only logical conclusion is that there was a reason.
And do you know what that reason was, Mr. Wright?
I finally figured it out. So this is why Lana tried to stop the trial. It's too late to quit now, though. Oh God, guys. Please recall the witness's testimony. She said she knocked away the man who was holding up the knife. In the next instant, the jar was hit and flew through the air. Now tell me, what could have sent the jar flying?
Well, that would have to be the impact the man made when he knocked into the wall?
Ladies and gentlemen, if I may draw your attention to this picture once more. If the man was knocked in the direction of the shelf the jar was sitting on, what would he have hit? What?
The suit of armor holding, well, a very sharp and dangerous looking sword.
Yes. And since the man who was knocked into the armor was carrying a broken knife, he would have had to have been Neil Marshall wielding the prosecutor's award. No, Mr. Wright, you can't be thinking. Yes. There is another possibility of what actually transpired in this room.
Another possibility?
Of course. The perpetrator would have had no idea, but nevertheless, I don't know if I can go through with this.
Mr. Wright, what's the matter?
If events took place as the defense theorizes, in that moment, assuming the man Emma Sky knocked away was actually prosecutor Neil Marshall, and this is why Lana Sky didn't want this investigated. This was the blackmail that Gant had on top of her. You mean Mr. Marshall died because of me? I never imagined her testimony would lead to this.
So it was the witness who took the victim's life, and then proved so with her own testimony. This is unprecedented.
What are you saying? I'm sorry, Miss Sky, but given the circumstance, Joe Dark murdered Prosecutor Marshall. How could you think it was Emma? Imagine that coming from you. If you recall, it was you who admitted to forging evidence 2 years ago. The reason you moved the Prosecutor Marshall's body was to keep anyone else from finding out about what Emma did, wasn't it? I assure you, Mr. Edgeworth, I have no idea what you're talking about. If you hope to have anyone believe your insane allegations, I'm afraid you're gonna have to have proof. Tell me, do you have any conclusive evidence that proves my sister killed Marshall? Evidence? I'm willing to bet you don't.
Yeah, it certainly would be difficult to prove this with evidence.
If we don't have evidence, then we'll have to rely on testimony. I'm afraid that won't work in this case. Both parties involved in this incident are dead. We certainly can't get dead people to testify. This has been a wild goose chase from the beginning. Touché, Miss Sky. Of course, that only leaves us with one possibility. You mean there's still another possibility?
What do you mean, Mr. Edgeworth?
I mean the possibility that the victim has left us a message. For better or for worse, Mr. Marshall did not die instantly. He may have left behind the name of the person who took his life. Somehow. That's impossible!
Well, Mr. Wright, this is the only possibility left to you. A message from the deceased. Does such a message exist?
Oh, I've got to think back to the court record. The real murderer's name that the victim may have left behind. We have this strip of cloth. Nothing on the back of it. And we have whatever the lines are on this. The dark red stains must be blood traces from the incident 2 years ago. Like, am I supposed to know what that is? I'm gonna say it does exist. This message from the deceased is already in our possession. Mr. Wright, will you stop at nothing to prove my sister a murderer? Do not be mistaken, Miss Sky. Our purpose is not to accuse Emma of any crime. There is only one thing we seek. The truth. No matter how painful it might be.
Now then, Mr. Wright, please show us the piece of evidence that conveys a message from the deceased.
This is the message from the deceased, Your Honor.
Right. Now then, this is the message from the judge.
Fuck, dude. Shit, dude. You'd better be careful or you might wind up deceased yourself. All right, let's try that again. Let's try the jar. It has to be. It has to be. The message left by the deceased is right here.
It's that blue badger from before, right?
Oh, is he just gonna speak the killer's name? If that thing could, I'm sure it would. Looks like everyone's forgotten this is just a jar. A message was left on here, on the surface of this jar.
What do you mean?
If you look closely, it looks like someone wiped the blood away. Yes, but notice this. For some reason, the blood on some of the fragments was not wiped away. Yes, there is a line here. Drawn in blood. So what you're saying is these dots were once lines? Prosecutor Marshall did not die instantly. He used a few precious moments left to him to leave behind a message. One that someone apparently wiped away. But blood must have seeped into the jar where the lines changed directions. Precisely so. All we need to do is connect these points and the victim's message will become apparent. No. No.
Mr. Wright, what kind of message did the victim leave for us?
Your Honor, I believe these bloodstains will reveal the answer. I've got to connect these dots to make letters. There's only one thing the victim would have written given the circumstances. the murderer's name. Aw, man! It's a defense attorney's duty to prove his client's innocence. That's why all I've been thinking about is saving Lana. After my efforts, I never thought it would turn out like this. Emma. So this is the final message of the prosecutor marshal.
Of all people. She may not have meant it, but in the end, the one who took the victim's life
Was Emma Skye. Dude, you like shit. Seaworthy! Can't say I didn't warn you. Chief Ant? Do you understand the implications of what you've done? What? What are you talking about? 2 years ago, Joe Dark was sentenced to death. He was convicted because of his final murder. I believe you were the prosecutor in that case, were you not? Oh, fuck, no way. Yes, Worthy, because of you, an innocent person was killed. And not only that, you used forged evidence to ensure his conviction. But Joe Dark really was a serial murderer, and that is undeniable. Huh. I'm afraid that's not important. Didn't you know? We aren't defenders of justice. What? We're merely keepers of the law. Sentencing a man to death is no light matter. Even if there wasn't any cover-up or evidence forgery, ultimately the responsibility falls upon the prosecutor in charge. Despite what anyone may say, the fact cannot be denied.
What's going on in the prosecutor's office? Oh, they might have sent an innocent man to his death.
How could they just stand there? It's like it wasn't his fault. Order! 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 Order!
Yo, this shit's getting nuts, dude. The gavel's pounding fell on deaf ears. Unable to settle the crowd, the judge declared a recess. Where this trial is headed, man, nobody knows. To be continued. Holy shit! Well, sick. I just proved that nice little girl to be a murderer, and just... Well, shucks. Now that it's just me and you at the end of the video, I wanted to take this to the next level. Would you do me the honors of touching my subscribe button